You're live.
Live. Okay, good evening, everyone. It's December 5th, 2024. This is the GBOS work session regarding the HLB 2025 work plan, 2026-2030 management plan. The Girdwood Board of Supervisors, its committees and subcommittees are subject to the Alaska Open Meetings Act as found in Alaska Statute 24.62.310 and Anchorage Municipal Code 1.25 public meetings. The Girdwood Board of Supervisors operates under the Girdwood Public Meeting Standards of Conduct. I call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock, 6:01 now, and I'm Brianna Sullivan, co-chair. The Girdwood Board of Supervisors acknowledges the indigenous peoples of Alaska whose land we reside on. The community of Girdwood, situated between the areas known to be Dena'ina and Alutiiq homeland, respects the people who were stewards of this land for generations. We commit to the continued stewardship of this land and are grateful to be a part of a wider community that seeks to maintain a sustainable use of Girdwood Valley for present and future peoples. Let's call in the room. Just say your name.
Brian Burnett.
Jennifer Wingard.
And online?
Mike Edgington.
Okay, great. We have a quorum and we're only missing Kelly.
She's on her.
Oh, she's on her way. Okay, we'll acknowledge her for the record when. Cute. Any disclosures this evening? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Do we have the option of, I see we have two proposed changes for 2025. I assume we have the option to discuss other changes.
I believe so. Yes, that was just the draft of the agenda. Anyone else can say a comment for the discussion?
I have a question about whether or not it would be appropriate to add in at least a brief discussion, an update on where we are with the Girdwood Comprehensive Plan, since we're right in between assembly.
Right. I didn't double check it now and I don't see it. So we'll entertain that as an amendment. Add number 3, the Girdwood Comprehensive Plan update.
Will we make that number 0 and do it at the very beginning?
All right.
I like that.
Okay, we'll take that as a second. Any other discussion on that? So we'll go by assent on the amendment as number 0. And then agenda as presented with the amendments. Amendment. Going by consent. All right, agenda is approved with the amendment. And then we can go to number 0. So Mike, could you start us off with Girdwood Comprehensive
Okay,
Plan?
so I'm not acting as a member of the body. I'm recused from that, but I'll speak as Imagine Girdwood chair. Yeah, so the current status is there was an initial hearing on the whenever it was, 19th, I think it was, in December. There was an S version introduced. That S version is what the community wants. So it's what the community originally proposed in the draft, and then all the things that we through Imagine Girdwood and GBOS have said they're comfortable with that were proposed changes from P&C. So basically, the latest version with everything in there that the community is comfortable with is what the S version is. That was introduced at the last meeting, partly because there's still this argument planning make that there has to be a 21-day public notice. The next piece of work, well, the next hearing from the Assembly will be on the 21st of January. So that's the second meeting. There is a very small chance, well, there is a chance, I'm not sure how small it is, there is a chance that it may get pushed further back because the 21st is the last date that anything can go onto the ballot. So if there's a lot of discussion around all the, I think there's currently 5 proposals for Project Anchorage. If there's a lot of discussion and that takes up a huge amount of time, it might be that will have to take priority on the 21st, and there's a chance the comp plan might get pushed further forwards. So, but I think currently I expect it to be a decision to be made on the 21st. There is planning unlikely to come back with a couple of changes from the S version. but they're probably going to be less than the changes they originally proposed to planning and zoning, because in the last 6 months they've got a better understanding what the plan actually has. I expect them to come back with a change around Virgin Creek, and I expect them to come back with a change around the Mitten Forest Loop area. I don't know what they are. We had an informational meeting in December, before the S version, just to share what the S version was, and they planning kind of backed off from what they originally proposed. So that's where we are now. So basically, 21st is going to be a continuation of the public hearing. I don't think there will be anything so substantially changed that people have already testified can testify again, but you can make written testimony in the meantime. And hopefully that's when a decision will be made on the plan itself. I've heard that there are a couple of members who may bring amendments. I haven't heard what they are. I'm trying to find out. If I find out, I'll share them. We are planning to have a Imagine Girdwood meeting sometime middle of January. We just haven't fixed the date yet.
Thank you, Mike. Kelly's in the room for the record at 6:06. And if you have more to add, are there any questions from what he said so far, Jennifer?
Yes, I have a question. Mike, first of all, I thought I heard something different, but I trust what you say, but I thought I heard that there were enough changes that you could testify again if you were testifying just to the proposed changes, like the S versions or whatever. I thought that's what
actually, you could be right. You could be right. I think if there are future changes beyond the S version, you could testify, but I actually don't understand that in detail because the S version was introduced before public hearing. So typically, I think definitely if you haven't spoken before, you can speak again. Sorry, if you haven't spoken before, you can speak. I don't think it's clear whether we can testify again or not. That's a kind of chair's decision. I will try and find out, so I have that information available when we have our Imagine Girdwood meeting.
Okay, and I would like to say that I'm particularly interested in that for the sake of whether or not we want to have another GBOS statement. And so I just want to kind of float that out there. I think we have a joint meeting, right, with LUC on the 13th before the 21st. Originally, I was afraid it was going to be the 6th, right?
Yeah, it's not going to be the 6th. It'll be the 7th. It'll be the 21st.
Okay, so in that case, maybe we can put that on the agenda for LUC and just see if, as a body or as a collective body, if we want to say something, if we can say something. How about that?
That was the purpose of one of the purposes of the meeting on the 13th, sorry, to give the opportunity for GBOS to update any resolutions.
Right. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I kind of have a technical question. Since I testified as Girdwood Board of Supervisors, can I come back and testify as Brian Burnett, I wonder?
Typically, no. The ruling, at least the chair in the past has ruled that if you speak on behalf of a body, you can't also speak as an individual. But if they decide that you can testify again because whatever is in front of them is significantly different, then in that case it doesn't matter. I mean, you'll be able to. And obviously, written comments and general emails you can always send.
So can I ask one more question? Just follow-up question on that. So do you think we might be able to have some clarification by the 13th on whether or not we can at least speak to changes again, as GBOS? I'm particularly interested in, can we have another GBOS representative statement?
Well, we definitely can. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say we definitely can in writing. I mean, we could do another resolution. I think in terms of who speaks, that's a good question. I think there's an argument that GBOS should be able to speak anyway, but it's a chair's decision. So I will ask chair and vice chair for clarity on that. And yes, we'll try and get that by the 13th.
A point of clarification for me: which meeting was it that people would have already spoken at? I can't keep all the meetings straight to even know if I already spoke.
Just this December.
Okay.
15th.
The assembly.
The assembly meeting. Okay, for sure. Then I did it. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yep.
Also, just to chime in, someone could, but Mike's going to be delegated to ask Zach Johnson said he would let us know if there were changes enough to be substantive to then qualify as more public hearing or a second public hearing, which I think they try not to do, but we don't know until someone says, and like it's the ruling of the chair.
And
Mike.
I think it's, sorry.
I was gonna say, stop me if it's not appropriate, but can anybody, I mean, obviously I wasn't at that meeting, the 18th. What was the Girdwood turnout look like? And what was the nature of the feedback that was given, just at a high level, at least? I can go watch it or whatever, but.
I think there were about 20 people or so testified in person or over the phone. And I think there was one of them was actually maybe 21 because Willem also testified, and he spoke in favor of changes to the mitten, changes from the S version for the mitten. And I think everyone else spoke generally in support of the plan, in support of the S version itself.
Yeah. Anything else on this item? Okay, I don't see any or hear any. Thank you, Mike, for the update.
Thank you.
Okay, number 1, review of HLB plans and 2024 input from GHEC and GBOS. This is how our agenda is lined up right now, but we can just as a group decide where we go from here. And I know we do this once a year, but every year is kind of far away. So do we have that one on? Well, it's listed right here, 6076. And last year, did we do a grid, kind of like a chart with each parcel and then our thoughts, not really a narrative, or did it combine with a narrative? Mike, or
I think we I think we sent back a grid, but it wasn't necessarily, it was sort of comments on the document. That's what I recall. So it is per section of document.
At least one point that we had narrative plus grid, because we had some comments about the introductory, like it wasn't all specific.
Yes, we did. Yep, you're right.
do we want to do that again
I think if you go under letters, GBOs.
and start us off today by parcel?
I was wondering if we could do it by the document, because the document is set up as kind of a review of what they've done, then the 1-year plans, and then the 5-year plans.
Okay.
Here's what you did last year.
Okay, thank you. All right. And we did the page number and all of that. Okay. And right, what Mike just said was we could discuss the 1-year plan first and go in order of the document. And my copy pasting here in your packet is in order of what is in the plan. And I only wrote the Girdwood parts, or the ones that pertained, including the cemetery in Eagwerber, because they mentioned Girdwood. But open to the group for taking it from here. 1-year plan, work plan. Unless anyone saw something before the work plan, you can.
Well, can I just speak to the last, and thank you for bringing that up so quickly. That was super helpful. I don't know that we would need to reiterate the piece that we put in again about Holton Hills, but I am wondering about reiterating our request for more local representation when the opportunity arises. But I don't know if that's not just so they'll remember or if that carries over, but we still haven't had that addressed. And then, yeah, that's the main thing that jumps out at me there.
And that'd be in the narrative.
Within the narrative section.
Okay.
Actually, we could almost make that a comment on the second page, because it shows one of the seats as being vacant.
Second page up there.
of their
Yeah,
document.
of their document, page 2, after the cover page, lists HLBAC members, and it notes that one of them is vacant. So I'm just saying we could almost actually do it as a comment there, and then refer back to last year as we requested a larger, more representation, and note the vacant seat.
I'm not seeing, oh, I see.
Right there.
It's not,
It's after Lakita's name.
for some reason, it's not on the version I'm looking at online. What? Am I,
This is from, so I clicked here
here it is, okay.
and then it sends me to that, and then you just go down, there it is, so.
I'm just offering that as a way we could just respond perhaps with a grid. No, we don't need to do the narrative.
I'm
It
not
doesn't
seeing
matter either.
anyone opposed to that idea. I think that sounds good. Okay, and then on their first mention of anything in Girdwood is the 6011A and B, and the improvements to the Iditarod National Historic Trail. I'm wondering if we want to say we support all the things we support, or just only talk about things we would like to fix or don't support.
Do you know what page that's on?
That one, it's in the work plan, so going down to page maybe 10 or whenever it starts. Yeah, 10 projects. It's because it's before industrial park.
Is it?
Oh, this is their work. This is their
Page 15.
I have it
accomplishment.
in 14, maybe.
This is still their accomplishment, sorry. There it goes, work program. So lower than that. 15, Jennifer, you said? Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
So this is the first mention of anything in Girdwood that we could respond to with an edit, note, support, or
What happened to those easements that were already there?
And there's never been easements. So the section from the school all the way up to the West Forest boundary, there's not an easement on that.
Really, I thought when we were doing the Crow Creek plan that we were walking around the Crow Creek neighborhood plan. We were wandering around back on the trail.
We have easements on Tiny and Athabascan, but we don't have easements on this section of trail. So we would like this to make this a priority now with this development
Oh, yeah.
coming in to get it done. And most likely the service area would pay to have the easement completed.
I swear there was something.
I know we talked to Forest Service about this too, when it was an issue.
The Forest Service doesn't have an easement as well.
Okay,
So they have an easement from the parking lot to the tram, but they don't have an easement from the section back to the Crow Creek Road. So this would be important for them to get it as well. And talking with HLB, they're supportive of us getting this easement done. I tried to actually sneak it in as part of the process for Holton Hills, but the easements, all the surveying is being paid by the developer, so we couldn't get it done. Whereas when we did the industrial park in that area down there, they did the easement. HLB paid for the easement of the lower Iditarod for us, which saved us lots of money. Easements are expensive because you got to get survey teams out there.
oh, yeah.
But it's what we got to do. We did the Iditarod years ago. We did California Creek. We did Abe's. Now we need to get this done.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so this is,
it does is it takes HLB out of the game. We don't have to deal with them, and we can just do our own maintenance and own program, and we don't have to deal with them. So it makes it easier for everybody.
okay, so what is our best statement to say for that, Jennifer?
I actually have one question about this too. Is this relevant for the Alaska, the proposed long trail?
The long trail is not particularly seen in this section. It's part of the Iditarod, but the long trail really just comes up and then goes up to Crow Pass.
Okay, I thought it was borrowing some of the Iditarod, but
Yeah, but that section is all that's out. So the U.S. Forest Service holds that easement for that section of the Winter Creek, as I said, back to the parking lot.
okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
Long Trail is would be from the suspension bridge north, isn't it? And this is south of
all
the
right.
suspension bridge.
Correct.
I think the comment is something like, we support we support these easements as a priority in 2025, something like that.
Yeah, and maybe HLB working with the Girdwood Service Area Parks
Yeah.
and Rec Department to get it completed.
I like the word support and encourage. Like to encourage them to do this.
I like this idea too of actively supporting things. Just politically, it makes us look more positive too.
Okay, that sounds great to everyone with nodding and saying yes.
Yeah,
So-
it's consistent with our trails plan too, because we talk about trails with easements are easier for us to maintain and to secure funding to maintain them.
Okay, does everyone feel comfortable with that? That'll be our first one in the chart after requests more representation, if that's also in the chart. Okay, next one is right below it. It's 6011B. I had just bolded the word recreation because I thought that would be a supportive statement. Otherwise, are there any comments? Oh, and there's the asterisk. Amendment may be needed depending on approval of Girdwood Comprehensive Plan. It's already red on the screen, but this is subject to change still, or it's not.
Yeah, I have a few comments on this.
Okay.
One is that I've heard Pomeroy talk about 95 acres or 97 acres or 96 acres. I can't remember the exact number, but almost 100 acres, not 72. So it would be, I think at the minimum, they need to clarify how much land they're talking about. I also think that there are, whatever the outcome is of the Girdwood Comprehensive Plan, if they're going to go forward with the land disposal, I think there needs to be some guarantee that the housing that we've been promised is going to happen within a reasonable period of time. So I think there should be some acknowledgement of, either here or somewhere in the document, a requirement for housing and a reversion clause if it's not done within some time period.
I have a point of clarification question about that. And Mike, is your concern primarily around the calendar, the timeline for this, or also the mixed use nature of it? Because even mixed use is not quite exactly, I mean, they've been very clear that it's going to be affordable or entry level housing, or they've used a number of terms that are a little different than mixed use. So I was just wondering what you're looking for clarification on that exactly.
Yeah, basically what I'm looking for is that when the disposal occurs, if it occurs. So first of all, depends on the plan, depends on what the land is, depends on HLBAC, etc. But if they do dispose it, I think there should be contractual requirements to produce the housing within a reasonable time period. Now we can have that fight later, but it'd be great if there was some acknowledgement of that in this document. So it's for the purpose of housing, and that would be part of the disposal requirements.
So within the 72 or 95 acres, it's the whole village. It's not just the part that's the Day Lodge parking lot now where they're going to put affordable housing. I mean, 'cause that's
Right.
far
The thing about the 27, the area that's currently zoned GRST2, which is the area they originally asked for, is 27 acres. But they've asked for more land as well on top of that, and I've heard 72 is one of the things that I've heard. But then I've also seen 95 or something mentioned. So I'm not sure exactly how much. So it'd be good. I think they at least need to clarify how much land they're talking about.
Yeah, and so the comment, so we want the amount of land specified, and then some comment around the 27 should have a stipulation on timing for construction of affordable housing.
Basically, yeah, if the land is disposed, there should be a requirement to construct low cost housing, community housing, whatever we want to call it, within a reasonable time scale, maybe 5 years.
Yeah.
Now they may not include it in here, but we should make the comment, and then we can make the comment later if.
I agree with that.
Okay, also that one is just 6011B is the reference in there for this, so.
It's just the mitten part.
Brian?
So I would like to, Pomeroy talks about this parcel being developed with recreation in mind. And they mention Nordic trails, they mention a Nordic hut. And since they're talking about it, that should be a requirement also. And that we have to have we need dedicated road crossing or a bridge to connect to the upper valley. There's a good bit in here, and also we need easements in between the properties so that we can access down to the river from. So there's quite a little list here that is.
Okay, and that should also go in this same statement because the next one is also a portion of 6011B, but that's only the Nordic rail.
Correct.
So the statements you made, Brian, need to be in the top part.
In this one, because just as they have been saying, we are going to build affordable housing. They've also said this land is for Nordic trails and this land is we have a Nordic hut drawn right here.
Mhm.
And if we're going to lose it, we should at least try and get something out of it and get some trails built.
Yeah, I agree with that too, right? Like they've said what they want to do, but unless it's binding in some way, then they're just getting free land.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
Exactly.
agree with that.
I think that fits perfectly with the recreation statement. And fits with the trails plan and the comprehensive plan.
But I think the comment is around requesting binding commitments on use before disposal.
Yeah.
Both for the Nordic and the housing.
Yes, for the housing and recreational use.
Yeah.
I mean, have a plan that, present a plan with it.
Okay.
Or it's disposed,
Free disposal, yes.
free disposal. Hopefully we get some sort of a Christmas miracle or something.
That clear to the body and whoever might be doing all these edits?
Yeah, I think we can find some language that works. And then again, what we'll be doing with this, we'll be bringing it back on the 13th as a draft. I say I don't know who will. Somebody will. As a draft, and then we'll actually approve it at that meeting. We won't be approving it today because this is a work session.
Thank you, Mike. Any other comments on that one? Again, the next one, I was suggesting to support this statement. And it's the parcel that includes the Nordic easement. Well, it's not an easement, it's the lease. But it's not on 6011B.
No, it's on a lot.
Well,
What are we
did you
looking
label it
for?
wrong?
Which parcel?
6011B, it says HLBAC unanimously approved resolution 2017-09 to the Girdwood Nordic Ski Club for a 20-year public use easement for the development of trails. Okay, that is the forest loop.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. So my suggestion would be to support that comment.
Agreed.
And if anyone has any language to add to that, we could, or support it. If there's no other comments, we can go to the next one. That's 6014. What did I have on that one? Oh, that's the bottom of ski resort over there on that side.
That's chair 7, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought they already did that, but that's just their statement doing that.
So is that, and that is going to be a sale to Alaska, right?
It says direct sale in the draft here.
Yep.
I wonder how we find out how much money they're gonna get for it.
It'll probably be
when they,
it'll probably be appraisal process with U.S. Forest Service.
Because that piece of property right there, I know that Alyeska pays a percentage of lift tickets and lessons and rentals to the municipality of Anchorage for that land. That's their lease.
Probably the biggest revenue maker of all their lands in here.
Probably. And so it would be interesting to know what they're going to do to replace that revenue.
I think that's why they would evaluate that process to see if it's worth it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, but it sits right in the middle of land that Alyeska owns, and it just makes sense for it to be part of Alyeska.
Yeah, it's the major connector.
Enough. What happens to those wetlands? Aren't those bankable wetlands up there? The mid 7, the mid 7 meadow that eats snowcats?
I don't think so. I don't think they're very good wetlands because like precisely the snowcats go through it and all those things. And so,
Yeah.
they're pretty selective on which wetlands they want to bank and they don't want to bank. So.
Okay, any comments on that state? We'll just leave that.
we could support it.
Yeah,
Support it.
support it.
Okay. Seeing yeses in the room. And then we were good with that one. The next one, 6039, 6061, and 6057. And that has to do with the easement of Joe Danich Trail, consistent with the Girdwood Trails Plan. My suggestion would be to support this. If anyone has any additions to it? Consistent with the Trails Plan. Next one is 6039 and 6062. Same, but asking for or stating the trails easement for Lower Virgin Creek. And consistent with the Trails Plan. So, support that. Next one is the kind of loaded because it's the industrial park. It's a pretty blanket statement. What is?
Yeah, sorry. I was going to
Go
say
ahead.
I really like that HLB is talking about working with GVSA to look at how that's best managed, which could be various ways.
I did also.
So basically, they're saying maybe it's better if GVSA does it rather than they do it, which I think is an acknowledgement that there are some things that we can do better here than HLB can do. So that's their first step in that direction anyway.
So if nothing else, we can support that line of thinking.
Yes. Even if this particular one might be a poison chalice, I still think the principle at least is has now been met.
Where's the Joe Danish Trail?
Oh,
That's the one that runs. I'll show you. Basically, it runs right there.
On the screen, Kelly.
Oh,
Kyle has it for you. Right there.
It runs.
About
In
that.
the winter, we ride the meadows, and then we end up down here.
It's a
Okay.
permit.
But the goal is to put the tree
Okay, I've never known that had a name.
with the highlands there.
So then if we could get the easement, then we could actually improve that trail and make it usable type thing.
Part of the easement would be determining a route,
Yeah,
because we can't use the meadows in the summer.
yeah.
We have to find something. So yeah, no, that's part of getting easement, and that's same for Lower Virgin Creek. There's actually already trails in there, so we can do maintenance and have more ownership over it.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, well, and the Trails Plan talks endlessly about it.
Yep. So that's why we will support that.
Yeah.
That's different though. So the industrial park group is supporting. And next
I think we
one.
can actually, sorry, I think we can say a little bit more than support it, something like support, and look forward to working with HLB.
Yeah,
Something
Yeah.
along those lines.
particularly support the idea of collaboration.
Yes, yes.
And from a user down there's perspective, hopefully finding a solution within the next year of some sort.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the 25 plan.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, thank you for those nicely said additions. The next one is GCLT submitting the application. And the very last sentence there, development of the site consistent with the Girdwood South Town site is supported. Does anyone know if that's really accurate?
Would have to be. Sorry, go ahead.
I think that's like their opinion.
Okay,
They would want to be consistent with the South Town site.
But the South Town site has to be consistent with the Girdwood Comprehensive Plan, as they acknowledge elsewhere. So my comment on this is, at the minimum, you have to acknowledge both. It should be consistent with the South Town site plan as, as amended to be consistent with the comprehensive plan.
comprehensive plan. Right, that's what I wrote in here too. I like the way that was stated. Any other thoughts on that one? Next one is Fulton Hills Tract 1 and 2 6011.
Sorry, can I back up 1 second?
Yes.
I'm a little unclear. Are they asking for, it looks to me like they're asking for potential uses. I guess I'm unclear on if GCLT already has a plan for that.
I think they have a plan or potential plans, but they're waiting to hear back from the appraisal type, whoever's telling them what is okay to do with that land.
Right, okay.
Whether it's 'cause 2 or 3, they had different.
I'm just trying to remember, is this something we've gotten a presentation on and I've scrambled which lot we're talking about, or has GBOS had a GCLT presentation about this particular lot?
This is the lot they want to put that arts and recreation on. They want to use part of this
Right.
076 to put
Okay.
that. Really, the only developable portion of this lot for any sort of residential is up here within the current flood plats.
Right, the plains made a mess of some of the ideas.
Right, okay. I was looking at the wrong lot, so of course.
I do think this is a little bit out of date. 'Cause we haven't heard anything from GCLT in a while, and it seems like what was coming at the presentations from Crystal was more Girdwood Inc. I actually don't even know who really the entity was behind those things. So it isn't GCLT presenting the request for the recreation center or art center. It's more artists.
Yeah, that's from Girdwood Inc. or the Art Council, Girdwood Art Council, or whatever. There's a new thing, but I think Girdwood Inc. was the primary mover for the Arts and Recreation Centre or district. I think we can make a comment about the Girdwood having to be consistent with the Girdwood Comprehensive Plan, independently of what we agree with or don't, or what we know about the GCLT plans.
Although it sort of just says here that that's what happened, right? GCLT put an application in, which is true. And whether or not other things have moved on it since then, nothing there. That's just a characterization of what's happened. So I agree with, consistent with the comprehensive plan, but nothing there rings untrue to me. Like more of information will become available. It has been. So we may want to reference, or maybe we want to reach out to Crystal and ask for, suggested updated comments.
I think from our perspective, we can say we don't know what the plan is from CLT on that land yet. There are several plans floating around. I assume the latest one is the one that they would go for, but we can still comment on it's not just the Southtown site plan; it's the comprehensive plan. It has to be consistent with, without necessarily making a statement that we support whatever the CLT's plan is.
I like that.
Thank you, Mike, and for the suggestions from the group. I think the other thing I had written down there was when it says to present information to as it becomes available and it will be presented to the HLBAC, should we suggest a time that it is in the work plan, but say 2025? I guess we don't have to say that. Never mind. But soon.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Oh, good. I mean, by backtracking, sorry.
No, I think we weren't really finished with that one yet. So that was helpful. Now the next is under, I think, potential acquisitions, because it's about the Holton Hills 6011. Kyle?
Good. Could I ask for you guys to consider before you leave this section about anything that's missing, and particularly
Yes.
the transfer of 6134, making that a priority project for 25.
Is that the downtown site?
This is the parcel over here for the RV park
Yeah.
and other recreational development.
Yeah, no,
Thank you, Kyle, for adding
I
that.
totally agree with that, because that should be a priority.
I also had another one. So go ahead.
Yeah, I think the other thing that might be missing isn't the Winter Creek extension. Wasn't that going to be transferred this year as well?
That is in process. So that's been approved, and Emma just hasn't got to it, but it's more of a staff completion that they need to do.
Well,
okay,
it's in
that
the-
doesn't have to be assembly action.
It has to go to assembly. So yeah, that's the
Okay.
action finish.
So
Right.
should it go in here just because it's in progress and we would want it
Sure.
referenced?
It's in
Yeah, I
the
think
wrong
so.
section right now.
Is it in the wrong section right now?
In the 5-year right now. So I had a note to add it to the 1 year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so
But we are jumping around. So 075 is the withdraw from HLV inventory and transfer to Girdwood Parks and Rec. It should be in the 1-year work plan. So
Complete that.
we could write that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it might be in 2 places in our comments, but it goes in the 1 year. And then the 6134 that Kyle just recommended.
yes.
And the statement, what do we want to say?
I think it'd be
Kyle said it.
it'd be transfer to Girdwood Parks and Rec.
Okay. That'll,
Or
And
withdrawal, I suppose.
Right, and that it's a high priority for the community.
Yes.
a priority for the community. Okay.
Anything else missing?
No, I think that was it for the,
Those 2 parcels. We might find it if there was another one, but if everyone read through it, they probably would speak up by now. Okay, so now we're ready for the potential acquisitions or wherever it's potential projects. So it's the 4th one down,
Holton Hills track.
that one. Except it says 60A. Oh, it was A. Formerly portions 6011 and 6016,
Yeah.
17.
There, it was on the.
Any comments about that one? Talking about AWW for sewer extension, site-related work.
We could be passively aggressive and just support the conveyance of track 3. Not track 3, sorry. I'm thinking of the next one, sorry. I'm thinking of the 11C, not 11B. 11A.
Should we say anything about easements in this one?
Or just
Yes.
reference back the easement work that's already been discussed.
Reference back the easement work. Okay.
I think the other part is in that AO also talks about having at least one parcel, maybe more parcels, for lower cost housing, and working with Girdwood community, including GBOS. So we can acknowledge that here.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I got a question.
What were you saying that could be passive aggressive? Sorry, Brian.
He's
I
waiting
was
for the
sorry,
next
I was
one.
thinking, I was talking about the next piece.
I was all for passive aggressive. Like, wait, I missed the good stuff. Sorry. Brian.
Back to Brian.
Hey, Kyle, when we did the lower Iditarod easements, was that NSTAR helping us or AWU helping us?
HLB,
Okay, I thought
they paid for it all.
they paid for it all, so
Yeah.
it wasn't NSTAR or AWU that,
Because when they tracked out those first 5 parcels,
yeah,
then put the rest of it into the large tract down there, at that time, they said, well, let's get that trail in.
okay.
Get 100-foot easement on each side.
You know, just since we're gonna have surveyors running around in the woods, you know, doing utility work and whatnot, it wouldn't be too hard to.
Well, that's what I tried to get with this with this Holton Hills, but the developer didn't want to pay for it.
So we're turning back around. I think the question is, this is specifically, we're on the section about the Holton Hills tracks, right? And whether or not there is anything we can or should say. Is that where we're at right now?
And the two suggestions so far are referencing the parcels for lower costs for Girdwood entity with that AO that they reference, the 23137,
Right.
and reference back the easement work we already discussed, or our first comment about the easements
Sure.
in that area. So kind of just reiterating. If we're good with that one, we could go to the next one.
Well, I got all kinds of other comments, but I don't think they're appropriate at this time, so let's move on.
And on the 13th,
Nothing we can really say.
this is
No.
the 6011C. So institutions and parks. And that's the tract right there.
What does it mean? It's gonna be included in the subdivision plating, which is to say it's gonna give it back to Parks and Rec when they actually subdivide the land that was. I don't understand that language.
So municipal or local community needs, does that include the school, Kyle?
So this will be recognized as Girdwood institutional parks when they do the subdivision plat. So when they go back in and they subdivide out these parcels, they will recognize this as institutional parks going forward. So,
Does that mean it comes back to us then in Parks and Rec?
correct.
So recognizing it as institution of parks means literally,
Which then we'll probably have to work out. The next step will be like, we'll officially probably get transferred to us for future management.
yeah, so should we request that that be explicit, that it be transferred to Girdwood Parks and Rec? I mean, because that's what we want, right? Is that Girdwood has the full agency over it.
I think I think maybe we should, we're going to start that park planning process, and maybe if it's recognized in there and the taxpayers want to take on the management of that parcel, then at that point in time, we could say transfer to us. Right now, if it's institutional parks, that means it has to be either used for institution or parks. But it doesn't directly mean we have the management responsibility for it. So the taxpayers aren't responsible for taking care of it. The HLB fund is responsible for taking care of it. So,
Okay.
so I think through that planning process, we're going to try to recognize future park parcels, and this could be one of them.
Should we maybe then reference if we are going into a parks master planning process, then that land will be considered? Does it have any?
Actually, that was a comment I was going to make later about other plans.
This needs to be platted, right? It's not
Hmm.
like, do we?
And it's about,
This language right here is about this platting, like maybe we let it get platted first and then lay claim to it, or?
yeah, and it's currently zoned.
I know it ain't platted yet, but we want it anyway. I don't know.
I just say this is probably just support because it's currently zoned go to institutions and parks. It doesn't mean anything about ownership or management. I think this is just a general support.
Okay.
Okay. Whether it's passive aggressive or not, it's general support. For 60.
Yeah, we'll take care of it. Gotta say it that way.
Right on.
Can you write that out? We'll take care of it.
There's got to be an emoji for that.
There it does.
I'll pile on.
Yeah, it probably has a
Insert some emojis. That'll help.
with it. Okay, next is page 17 is land management. What do I have next? Is special analysis was the next thing. that, where your mouse is. Yeah, we just, that's lovely. They're doing geographic data and information. Potentially develop HLB parcels in Girdwood in 2023. I'll work with that staff to do the expansion of spatial analysis to all HLB parcels.
What's GDIC?
The words in front of it.
Graphic Data and Information Center.
Okay. I mean, is that another place to, I feel like after you do some analysis, it's like you talk to us type thing. Don't just go sell it off before. I mean, is that another passive aggressive place to insert the importance of working with GBOS on the findings, or I don't know, maybe it's too far removed, but just seems like that's trying to push a train down the road that is a slippery slope.
Maybe we could suggest they publish or post that spatial analysis on their mapping. That's what you mean?
Okay, or make the spatial analysis available to Girdwood Board of Supervisors and our advisory committees.
I think what's happening here is, they completed that inventory and presented it to the community a year ago or 2023, and now they're trying to stick it into basically this, so that we can easily see what they thought was developable lands. So when you pull up their parcels, they will probably highlight them in maybe yellow, and that way you can quickly get to the ones that they thought were developable through that analysis that they did. They presented.
Mm-hmm.
It makes the reference quicker. As to if it futurely gets sold or things like that, there'll be a whole process in its own.
Do you think they'll follow their process, or you think that's just?
I'm not gonna-
So we could support that.
I mean, sort of. I wouldn't put anything in on support because it's like they're gonna do it because they're trying to sell off Girdwood's land. I mean, I kind of don't support it because I don't know. It scares me how fast everything's moving.
So the analysis that he did was a result of the community asking for it
In the assembly.
in the assembly.
So it's more data.
I just kind of leave this one personally. Just let them do it, not support or not,
Yeah, I have no attachment to that statement. It's regarding all their parcels, so, but they mentioned Girdwood, so. If there's no other comment on that, we could leave it. Or have it, see it on the 13th. Next is plan studies and surveys, so they bring up the Girdwood comprehensive plan with that red text because it's maybe gonna happen in January or February at the assembly level. Any comments on this one?
I would just put a support.
Okay.
The other thing I wasn't sure about here is whether this is the right place to reference the Girdwood Parks plan, or whether that's within the 5-year management plan. And I defer to Kyle. At least they could acknowledge, there could be an acknowledgement here that there's a parks plan going ahead, which may involve some HLB time.
Yep. I think you could probably put it here.
Yeah.
Yes, it is a plan, study and survey coming up.
Yeah, it's within the 2025 work plan, so I think we should reference it.
Thank you, Mike, for bringing that up for there. Any other comments before we go to we already mentioned 6134. That's where I had it listed. 5-year management plan. Then we go to 6039. Evaluate this parcel for potential replat into residential lots for disposal.
Okay.
Again, I think this is this should be a work with GBOS comment.
Okay.
Mhm.
Where's 039 though, Cal?
It's coming
Right here. So that's talking about these uplands right here
between Ruane and
of the beaver ponds.
the others.
Yeah, I think definitely a work with GBoss. Something around like evaluate this parcel in collaboration with GBoss.
Well, that was part of their analysis. This is one of the developable parts.
Yeah.
So, but yes, to your statement,
Let me see if we made a comment about that last year.
there it is on the bottom. Add to 24 work program for 5-year management plan. We could say that again.
How is that represented in the comprehensive plan, Mike?
It's I think it's medium intensity residential or something.
And GHEC was actively interested in this. I think I see Matt Schechter online, but for a while there, they were looking pretty closely at the potential for multifamily units in here.
Yep.
Well, maybe that's another comment worth putting in collaboration with GBoss and something that is explicit around public land for public good. Like, you know, but I think it's worth requesting that it be explicit, right? Because like, we don't want future disposals that don't address the housing issue. If it's developable, then, and it's on the road system and it has utilities, it's like.
Be consistent. This is what we wrote last year. If you can see that bottom line, that is what we wrote last year for that parcel. We could say something very similar, and I know Mike was going to say something and Matt has his hand up. So Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, just wanted to quickly say the language that's used in the document there, I think is fine. But yeah, that in terms of the Girdwood comprehensive plan, I think originally they had that set as like light residential or, you know, kind of, and I think that was maybe the one request that I saw immediately is that we changed it to the more densified version of residential or however they categorized it to kind of reach what Mike said. But yeah, this is of those parcels we were fighting for, this is one of the important ones. Thanks.
And I think it's important. All I was going to say is this roughly the same, but I think it's important we again say that this could be done through GVSA, not through HLB, which is kind of what we said last time.
Yep.
The problem being that if HLB dispose of it, they won't follow policies, which are the only kind of policies which are successful in other resort communities, gateway communities.
Thank you, both of you. Thank you, Matt and Mike. Jennifer?
Sorry, Joanna. Does it come then to the question of, which I think is what you were saying right away, is are we happy with this language here? Right, that we used before? The language and our response from before, are we happy with
I think
iterating that?
yes, and to add whatever the terminology in the comprehensive plan S version is. So whatever it was, medium, whatever we're all not sure exactly what it's called. I think
it's now called moderate intensity residential, but I don't think we need to put that in. I think we could just take the language from last time and use that directly.
Okay, but
the clarification is future housing development explicit enough that that's community housing?
No, I think I agree with you. I think we should put future community housing development.
Or affordable housing or something, just so that we're explicit, like, we don't want this to go to another hotels like this.
Right.
I think the term community is good because community housing means housing for people in the community, not outside the community. So, and it's not too explicit about whether it's, you know, affordable keeps on getting, there's too many different definitions of affordable.
Agree. I just feel like it needs to point directly to what we want.
And you, do we prefer just real quickly, do we prefer the word community over workforce?
Matt had his hand up right in the midst of that, but
yeah, I think instead of saying separate parcel for future uses, say separate parcel for future community housing. I think community is fine. I think it's broad enough to encompass workforce, and it doesn't. I have no problem stepping away from the word workforce for here, or you could say community/workforce housing.
I also like community.
I just want to make sure we're clear that it's, we have a certain expectation about the price point for that. Just not starting at 9 and up.
Right, which I think Mike
Well-
alluded to at the statement about policies we could have, but HLB wouldn't if we were we as GVSA
Right, okay.
I mean,
or resort town. Sorry, Matt, go one more time.
housing's
you're-
also a broad language term because it could imply you could own or rent. And I think, or at least the intent is that this is where this would be rental units would go. At least that's my intent. But just food for thought in terms of semantics. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other statements on this one? Okay, that one is, thank you, Kyle. It'll be referenced with a little bit longer than what we have right there. Let's see, the next one is right below that, potential pursue disposal. As we've seen presentations a couple of years ago, the intersection redesign. Do we have a comment for that?
Isn't that kind of on hold now?
Well, they have
Yeah.
to stay.
So does it belong in,
It's the 5-year plan now, so it's,
yeah?
Do we have,
And do we care either way, I guess is the
yes, we
question.
do. Do we have a comment? I was just going to ask if we had a comment about this last time because we definitely care here, right?
oh, right. Is it in the last year's comments? Maybe they were behind, they added it this time, but not last time. In their work plan, I mean.
Well, it'd be nice to have some mention of Girdwood input for at least for the DOT design. I think that is on hold, so it's hard to know what to say, but it would be really nice to at least mention that there is currently a disconnect between what the community is looking at and the last plan we saw from DOT.
I mean, maybe it's another one where it's like potential pursue disposal to DOT, but there's another in collaboration with GBOS or GVSA in here. And then there's something in the spirit of, conditional disposal, like the Alieska stuff and Brian's comments there. I don't know exactly, but it seems like those two features could apply here.
Well,
I don't have
Girdwood
some
is not,
opinions, so.
Girdwood is not spoken in support of the plan. Or,
Right, the proposed design.
Which is, I guess, what I mean of like doing it in collaboration with GBSA or with Girdwood or whatever, and assuring that whatever the community is asking for is obligatory or whatever for disposal. That wasn't the right word, but whatever we said for the resort stuff in the Nordic Center and whatnot. I mean, those two themes, I think, especially consistent with the feedback that Girdwood's all over the map and, whatever, if there's themes that we can kind of reemphasize consistently to kind of reinforce what we're asking for, which is collaboration and then some commitments and, not just throwing us under the bus again. That we do ourselves some favors with consistency and messaging, staying on brand, if you want.
This one is a little tricky because, legally, we're not involved in this, right? Like, I mean, obviously, this is super important to our town and everything else, but just legally, this is between DOT and HLB technically, but this is what it always comes down to, right? Because it has this huge impact. But Girdwood, well, Girdwood hasn't spoken in support. Girdwood has spoken in opposition to this. We did have official GBOS opposite, and we showed up to planning and zoning and they didn't care. But anyway, we just reiterate, maybe if nothing else, we could reiterate either like we would encourage working with community, or we reiterate that there was not community support for the last design we saw for DOT, either one of those.
Just from a process aspect, HLB will be late in the process with this. They'll probably get to a design before they even approach HLB about buying any parcel. So, so I don't want to have you guys get too wrapped on this, because by the time it's into this, it's going to be through so much community process. It's going to be way down the road.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're going to have a
Actually,
little on the design.
I have a different comment on this. I agree with Kyle. I think HLB is going to have very little influence on the design of the intersection. However, I do think there's something we can say here, which is if there is going to be a disposal to DOT, I think we should definitely push, or at least ask the question of whether that can be, rather than a disposal, whether that can be an exchange with some of the land that's currently part of Moose Meadow, but is within the airport parcel. Because there's a huge amount, about half the airport land is uplands in Moose Meadow, and is never going to be used for aviation. And it creates this huge block in our, blockage in our trails network. So I think there is a significant advantage if we could get HLB to think seriously about looking at this as a land exchange and not as just a disposal to DOT.
My sense is that those are two different types of DOT.
But they're still within, yes, but they're within they're within DOT. They're different parts of DOT, but they're within DOT.
Yeah, I mean, we can, wait, my other sense is that a lot of the reason the airport land is to protect the aviation, the pattern and everything else. So I don't know that we would want to not have that be managed by the airport, because it's in service of aviation safety and operability.
I have a very strong disagreement with that. There's no way in which they're ever going to use that for aviation. It's not ever been identified as part of the aviation use of that land. About 60% of the land is not threshold. It's not extended runway. It's not aviation use ever. It's just upland in Moose Meadow. And it's a big problem for us as a community. When we look at the trails plan, the biggest problem with the trails plan, the biggest structural problem, is there's this huge chunk of land in the middle, which DOT owns and acts as a blockage for everything. So I think this is a good opportunity to at least bring up a topic of exchange rather than disposal.
The answer is always no if you don't ask.
Right.
I would use words like consider opportunities for land exchange, because
Specifically, I would say specifically with the upland section of the airport, or with the Moose Meadows part of the airport land.
yeah, I think the word consider leaves a lot of.
Yeah, that's good.
That's what it needs. It needs consideration from my perspective.
Yeah.
Kyle, what were you saying?
Well, one thing I know DOT is happy to do is exchange the whole airport to the Muni, just like they did up in Birchwood.
Which might happen eventually.
And because it takes it off their roles and takes off their management responsibility and turns it over to the Muni to consider. So that could be something for the long run. Now, that would be something that service area would have to really discuss, because most likely it'd fall back on the service area to maintain it. So
I think that would be what happened in Birchwood. Is it became area wide. It's part of the aviation, part of the enterprise. Actually, it's not even taxpayer funded; it's enterprise funded.
but that's a little bit out of the area plan or the HOB plan.
Yeah. I'd like to just reference potential, or consider potential exchange of land with the DOT airport.
Okay.
So just to clarify, we have consider that, and then also, do we still have a general consensus on the request to work with GBOS on this too, or not?
I don't think there's any. I think what we can acknowledge is that we're not in support of DOT's proposed intersection redesign. I mean, we can say, while we don't support their planned intersection design, if this happens, then consider land exchange. As Kyle said, HLB really won't have any leverage in this. HLB will be at the end of the process once the decisions on design have been made.
Sure, I don't mind the chance to reiterate our opposition though. So
Well, that's yeah. Yeah, I think that's a way to phrase it. So we're saying we don't support that design, but if it goes ahead, consider this path.
Okay.
No, thank you all for that, working through that. And the next one I had, so HLB parcel 11111 41s has to do with the Eagle River Cemetery, but they mentioned Girdwood. So my suggestion was to support that because our projects were proposed together initially and not initially. So
Sorry, before we get to that, do we need to make another reference to 6075 as just to reiterate that we think that should be in the 1-year plan, not the 5-year?
yes, thank you for catching that. I earlier thought we'd have 2 references. So this is the second reference, that this should be bumped up to the 1 year. And that is what I was following over here on the notes. Sound good to everyone? Okay, so then the next one is the potential projects in the next 5 years. Right there at the top, it's talking about the bond that did not pass to fund cemeteries in Eagle River and Girdwood. Do you think it's appropriate to support it, even though they mention Eagle River, but they're mentioning Girdwood? I do.
Yeah.
Anyone have comments about that?
Well, because it's 018 and 111 say the same thing, basically.
Mm-hmm. Because that's the next one's our parcel.
So we just
But-
support both.
Yes, support both. But in the our last regular meeting, Tommy had brought an update from his meeting with the Anchorage Cemetery Board, potentially doing something in the next year, but that's a assembly level, basically. Does anyone, I don't know if we need to say that. Like, oh, I think I wrote adding something about holding space. Is there any commitment here that they'll hold 6018 for Girdwood?
I think being the plan has shown up a commitment,
Okay,
you know, that is recognized as, and that parcel in Eagle River as well have been recognized as potential cemeteries for the future.
okay.
They're just now waiting for something to happen.
Yes, they are. Right. Because it was even stated that Zach Johnson might look into Q1 revision for the public burial stuff. So could be very soon. Okay, support of both. Then next one was, I just was curious for the group or for everyone. Clarify the HLB parcels 251, 295, and 296.
So they're trying to get the state to give the Muni a bunch of land for development up valley, it sounds like. And that's a game changer for Girdwood.
I think this also has to do with like the Nordic area, and they haven't completed the conveyance process. And so we can't, if we wanted to transfer that to Girdwood Parks and Rec, we can't because the conveyance process hasn't been completed. And this has been discussed quite a bit over the years. And it sounds like a sticky project to get through because it requires the state to be cooperative with the process.
Yeah, I think that one of the problems is the state said that they produced a letter and they consider that enough, and HLB don't consider that enough. And it may be that other parts of DNR don't even consider that enough.
Do we support it?
Well, to me, there's 2 different things here. Well, maybe 3, but the first thing is this issue about whether it can be conveyed or not. And then the second thing is it's talking about up valley development, which is actually referenced in the Girdwood Comprehensive Plan, which will effectively update and replace the area plan. So there should be some reference to that. And then the third thing is eventual transfer of most of the recreational land to Girdwood Parks and Rec. So I think there's different components here. This really is just talking about the up valley, potential development on Notch and Sunnyside.
Yeah, and I think that survey of 1,200 acres it's your hugest hurdle because it's gonna be so expensive to complete that. But it lingers, it just lingers and lingers.
Well, based on Mike's comments, do we add the comprehensive plan reference or?
Yeah, I think the minimum I would say is they should update that to talk about the comprehensive plan because it says different things to what the area plan did.
Right.
About future development in that area. And then I think the other thing is be clear that we're looking for some of the recreational land to be eventually, once the patent issues are resolved, to be transferred to Girdwood Parks and Rec.
Okay, so that's a two-part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think so. Okay. I think nodding is good. And then we're on to the statement, Girdwood Valley parcels, create a site plan for a mitigation bank site in the Girdwood Valley. I also wanted to know what that meant to the group.
Right. I was gonna ask that same question.
Yeah, this is for the wetland mitigation bank, and I know they've been sort of moving. They've been changing their opinion, I think, of whether that's worth doing or not worth doing. I don't know what the latest position is. Do you know, Kyle?
No, I mean, we had a presentation maybe 5 years ago about they presented land that they thought would be great for a mitigation bank, and they didn't pursue it. So I think this has been on there as possibly coming back and looking at parcels that could become mitigation bank. But at this point in time, they haven't done it.
So I mean, I support the idea in principle.
I agree with your comment, Brianna, that it needs clarification. It's a pretty esoteric statement.
Yeah, we could support it in principle, but that's our interpretation of the reading, or maybe Mike knows more about what they are trying to do, and Kyle too. So,
Well, maybe we can say
It's
GPOS understands this to mean X and supports this in principle. And that way, it's implicit that if that's not what it means, they should go ahead and correct it because that's what we interpret it to mean. And
I think it's not very well presented here, but the previous paragraph, or at least 2 paragraphs up, the Heritage Land Bank Umbrella Mitigation Banking Instrument, that describes what they're going to do. And then they talk about potential sites lower down, which includes the Girdwood Valley parcels. So you have to read the whole thing, basically,
okay.
those 4 paragraphs.
Okay.
So I think it's a little clearer if you read it that way, but perhaps the comment is just, clarify that this is part of the mitigation. Maybe there should be bullet points.
Mm-hmm.
The parcel should be bullet points underneath that bigger point.
Right, because then they're listing them after that.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I wonder if it would also be appropriate to make some mention here of the watershed plan, like we're asking for general watershed management, and this seems like it would fit right in. But we're kind of, it's also possibly a little bit, I have trouble objecting to preservation of.
well, but I think
Bank
that's a
sites,
good
but-
point is like we're requesting a watershed plan. I think we've heard requests from the community for a site-specific study of some of the stuff around the old Girdwood. And I mean, is there something what we add here for requested studies? And I'm not sure it's in this. I don't know where exactly in the document it would go, but if that's what we want, it does seem like adding comments to that end is appropriate here. So, yeah, watershed study and site-specific study of old Girdwood. I don't know what else I've heard.
Maybe what we could say is that this seems consistent with our interest in developing a watershed management plan and the studies done about our watershed areas. So maybe nothing else we can add in, like this has potential to be a part of other things we're asking for. Just as a reminder, remember that we're asking for.
Well, but is this section on studies and projects, case?
Oh, yes.
I just wonder where's the right place to put in the things we want them to go think about? And it seems like there would be a document somewhere in the 5-year plan, they might list what types of things they had on their radar. I don't know, is that anywhere in this document?
So there's like projects back up here.
It's under potential acquisition.
Answers.
Page 22, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, potential plan studies and surveys. So Southtown Site Master Plan, Girdwood Trails Plan. So then this is where we should ask for the watershed plan and the old Girdwood site specific study. And anything else we want. I can't think of another site specific study we're requesting.
I'm not sure if is the old Girdwood one HLB.
Certainly came up at an HLB meeting and it was specific to the industrial park conversation. So that's where I've heard it requested, but I'm not an expert enough to know if it is.
I think one thing that came out of our discussions on that process was talking about a neighborhood plan for Old Girdwood, because of the dense residential there and the minimal HLB land that's within the area. And so, in talking with Amanda, that's kind of where I think she was trying to get to, was like a neighborhood plan that's specific to Old Town, which leads to management decrees for the area.
But a neighborhood plan has to be initiated by the landowner. If I recall correctly from title, whatever it is, it specifies that, which in this case would be a bunch of private landowners. It's not like HLB. Like HLB would have been required to initiate one for the Holden Hills area if they followed their process, because they were the landowner. And so I don't understand how that would even happen with regard to Old Girdwood.
Well, a landowner through a collective body, which GBOS represents, could run that plan.
Okay, so it would be GBOS that would do the neighborhood plan, so there would be no ask for HLB because they would have no obligation.
No, I mean, we could ask them to partner with us, that since they have parcels of land down there, and
Yeah.
they would fund that. But I think if you're looking to get something done, you most likely would probably do it quicker through us.
Well, we could still put the request in the 5-year plan so that at least it's documented. That, I mean, if it's not in this, then we should have no expectation that it's on their radar. But if we want it on their radar, then we need to put it in here.
I don't think we as a body have had that discussion about about a neighborhood plan. This is the first time, I think this is the first time we've actually ever mentioned a neighborhood plan for Old Girdwood.
And I'd suggest that go on the LUC joint meeting, because that's something where we would want LUC to weigh in on.
Yeah, and like I said, it was a discussion point within LUC, but there was no action or request from neighborhood
Right.
to make.
So is that
Yeah.
a fair statement that it would go on that joint meeting with LUC to ask LUC if there is a statement that wants to be made?
I think we're missing community activation around that right now.
Yeah.
But I guess so that's
We
what
only
I'm
have
saying.
one person from Old Girdwood asking for it.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like if we put
Not
it on the
resident.
agenda, maybe we can inspire Old Girdwood to come to the table, or I don't know.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Amanda's certainly tried. She has brought it numerous times and there isn't neighborhood interest in it yet. So I think we're waiting on that
Okay.
before, but I do wonder about the watershed management plan here, mentioning that. And if nothing else, mentioning the potential kismet between, I mean, that's not the right word here, but between that and their mitigation.
I think going back to what you said, Jennifer, adding some kind of asterisk where we thought it was fitting first,
Okay,
and to reference it then as a potential plan study structure.
okay.
Yeah.
And then I also wonder, is this where we want to mention our interest in a community parks plan,
I think if we have one, we should mention it.
right? I mean, that's,
Yeah, I think we said that should be in the 1 year.
okay.
It should be one or the other.
Did we capture it in the 1 year though? for studies?
I think we did.
We-
Yep.
Comment?
A
Talked
few minutes ago, we talked about.
Oh, all right,
Can't
sorry.
remember the fact.
Sorry,
That's
I'm brain scramble.
It's okay. We, not January yet, but it's gonna, we talked about it in and Kyle's on it, so it'll
Thank you, Kyle.
move forward.
The other
Mike, were you gonna say something too before that?
Yeah, actually, just in this section. The other thing that we might want to put in there is just a suggestion, include a comment about the implementation of the Girdwood Comprehensive Plan. That might also have implications. So the same as they have the Girdwood Trails Plan implementation here, there'll be the Girdwood Comprehensive Plan implementation. Will have significant implications for HLB.
In support of that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree with that.
nodding.
Okay, and also in this one, I had bolded the part about proposals requiring support of HLBAC in the assembly. I just would like clarity from this body, how they read that. Does that mean we need to go through the process for every proposed trail?
It's at the discretion of the planning director.
Okay,
So
the way it's worded is fine. After the word conceptual phase, that stuff in parentheses.
yeah, that may not be always true. So what's changed, over time is one, we don't have a parking requirement anymore. So those things were all like these, it's become easier in a way to develop trails, but they are basically saying, be prepared to go to the assembly.
Yeah, I think our understanding is proposals may require the support of HLBAC in the assembly.
Yeah, I'm okay with adding may.
We
May
can
require.
suggest that.
The trails plan was very, very involved in
Yeah,
having the requirement for every single one would be really,
All really the result of the characters who are in charge, and characters have all changed now. So we'll see who the next cast and what they say, what their interpretation is.
okay.
Because the plan's, fairly detailed on what we want. It's not detailed in how we're going to build it or where it's going to be.
True. Right. I do remember a lot of that. Good, Kyle. Okay, that was all I had listed that I'm referencing back and forth. And I don't know what's below that. So we just added the Girdwood Comprehensive Plan beneath there or as a suggestion, and anything else.
I'm
I had-
wondering, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Like,
Okay. I had two other comments on from page 11. I think what I was going to suggest is we acknowledge, I think we commented on the Holt Hills. I think we should acknowledge and the comment about the Girdwood Trails Plan, support that. And then also acknowledge the work they did for parcel 613.
oh, yeah. Okay. That was fairly quick work they did. So,
613, I'll just bring it up so you guys can understand. It's this parcel right here.
yeah.
Oh,
It's the extension to Moose Meadows, I guess.
So yes, I would agree with thanking them for their work on 6013. And communicating.
and then do we have, sorry, I'm not sure if I'm seeing it. Do we have an easement request on the levy as part of this?
I don't,
Oh, you mean a permit for the road maintenance?
Yes, right away. That's what it is.
Yeah,
Right away.
it's not in here, but that's going to be a fairly quick process.
So we don't necessarily need.
Because this is going to be a year permit. I just signed all the permits for 25, and it'll just be one of those that she's going to send to us.
Okay, all right.
She says, hey, you guys got management responsibility, make sure there's no potholes. So,
Well, I was thinking of things that I was thankful for with HLB, and it's some of the work down there was good.
Yeah.
Worked plan.
I mean, actually, that's a question. I wonder if they should mention. We could suggest that they mention the the work on the levee as part of the project work they did last year.
Yeah, I mean, that was a ton of work.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. That is something they definitely accomplished in 24.
Yep.
Yeah, so
And that-
perhaps we can just mention it as part of the projects.
Great history.
Yeah, yeah.
I agree with that also. Adding that to completed projects, you said?
Yes, that'd be page 10 or 11, the project section.
Okay. Margaret, you had something.
I was just gonna tack on, we had the implementation of elements of the Girdwood Comprehensive Plan, and although we don't know what they are yet, maybe adding for the 5-year stuff, the Girdwood Parks Plan, anticipating that there'll be activity that needs to take place.
I agree with that too. Okay. Right, because that would take longer than a year. Parks plan.
I don't have a strong opinion about this, but my feeling is I'd rather not comment on the implementation of the parks plan until we're basically done with it. And maybe add that in next year. But I don't have a strong opinion. I don't mind either way.
Yeah, that was my initial thought, was that we hold off on mentioning it because we haven't got it off the ground yet. And so
Could be 5 years.
Well, I think we can mention it as a potential plan that will happen in the 2025, but I think the implementation following from that, we can wait until we're further along in the process.
Sounds good.
Thank you. That I agree. See it both ways, but less can be more as well.
And so then the only other question here is whether or not are we gonna ask for or reiterated interest in the watershed management too? Right?
Yes, I think we should.
I think that was the consensus.
That was a consensus. Okay, I wasn't sure. I just wanted to double check. Okay, I wasn't sure if there was nodding.
Yeah, and we
Yeah.
captured that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Are we asking for them to lead that or to be involved in it?
In some respects, I think we should ask them to lead it. Because again, if you don't ask, and so much of the concerns I hear about the watershed, it's the general big picture impact of development, and are we thinking through the implications? So there's no one entity that's solely responsible, so it's gonna fall to the surface unless they say yes, so we may as well ask.
well, I think they should partner with the watershed management department to get it. And maybe they're a primary funder, but the watershed management crew is the one that actually would lead the whole development.
What I mean though is, who's the primary funder? We should ask them to do it, because if we don't ask, for sure they won't.
Yeah, and I would tie it to future development of HLP parcels.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a
partner
more
with-
consistent. That's a more consistent position that watershed management should lead it. HLB should be involved, as indeed should we.
Great suggestions, everyone. I think if there are no other comments about the work, 1 year, 5 year, the next is make sure everyone is at a good understanding and who are the 2 volunteers who'd like to on the editing chart for the 13th.
And is the goal is to create, I
I think so.
think that works really
And
well.
we had our own reference code. That's right.
They appreciated last year because it was super clean. So.
Okay. And it wasn't split up by 1 year or 5 year. It's just page number, which is also probably fine with them.
Yeah.
If no one else is
Help.
volunteering, I could help.
I was about to volunteer, but you got in there in front of me. I'm only volunteering because I believe that Margaret has done about 80 to 90% of it.
You're not here to see the eyeballs.
But as land use, Jennifer, did you have interest in doing this?
I'm fine too, but I noticed we already have 2 volunteers and you only need 2, right? I mean, I wouldn't want to get in the way.
Well, Mike made a good point. Margaret did.
I've done nothing.
Okay.
I have nothing.
Well, this is,
No, staff did it. We just pushed the record button, so it's all right there.
If nobody really did, I mean, that is what needs to be done probably, is to go back and capture what the agreements were. I wasn't taking notes. I should too.
okay, well, I don't
mind.
out loud. I don't,
However it works out.
but I wanted to offer it to Jennifer because you're land use.
Yeah, right. No, I'm not feeling like you're either one of you. You two have done so much work on Girdwood comprehensive plan. You're pretty familiar with lots too. So I'm happy either way. Happy to do it. I'm happy to not do it.
Okay. I'm happy to have everyone's help on the 13th then. Okay, so Mike and I will work on this. And is there anything else about this before I go to, there's no public comment, but on the agenda, but
Just in
Has a
terms of
comment.
timescale, I think it would be helpful if we could get this together before the GHEC meeting next week. So I'm probably not going to be able to get it done by Friday, but I think it's reasonable to get it done by the end of next weekend. So we'll at least have a draft. We can share that with GHEC as well, because I know they were interested in the content.
yes, their meeting is a week from today. So that is the weekend coming up. That is true. That was suggested somewhere to have it before their meeting. All right. Any comments from anyone else? And entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. Thanks,
Second.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Good work on
All right.
that, Anna.